Hello everyone, my name is JJ Tumbleweed and welcome to the Disney Experience video. I came to talk on here because why not? Because I want to talk about my experience with Disney. Because why not? I really wanted to talk about it. So, I went through the 5 stages of grief, but it's backwards. You want to know why it's backwards?
Why?
Acceptance, depression, bargaining, anger as hell, and denial. Not gonna lie, that's how it felt like when I was having like 4 months of literal just Disney. Not gonna lie, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Not gonna lie, it's not that bad. But crazy. In January, it was fun. I had a lot of fun at the parks. I was basically just trained for Disney Springs, and yet I focused more on my art and my friends. Not gonna lie, it's not that bad, yet I've been basically waiting for this moment. So I basically just accepted that I was in the Disney College program in a apartment and basically just trying to just relax. However, after a lot of walking around the parks and a lot of training until like February the 3rd, my legs have been in constant pain, including my feet that kept pulsing. It was because my shoes I had to break in. Not gonna lie, it was chaos. My inner chaos. Moving on to February was basically like the most depressive month at all the time. On Valentine's Day, let me remind you, I work 3 parts. I work in ODV, at Cirque, and working as a stocking. So ODV is just basically fast food and kiosks and carts. Circus Olay is basically where I work, like, let's just say a movie theater, right? You see the popcorn, the hot dogs, all that. That's where I kind of worked. And the show is really good, not gonna lie. And being a stalker is basically just grabbing the stuff from huge containers that they have in the back and roll them out in a big ass cart and just put them in places after you list them down. So Valentine's Day was kind of like a struggle as a stalker for me. I was being just put around everything, having to read someone's very small language, and basically being like, well, you get the memo. Being told to go somewhere when they didn't specify where. Crazy. Later on, I was constantly being switched between coworkers.
With this person.
Last time in after my training, I was basically switched 8 times because they didn't know where to put me, and then they didn't know where I was closing. Not gonna lie, I didn't really mind because even being a closer at Publix, I was used to this. So now it is time for the plate situation. They go by the name Plate Maru. They were like with a pink hoodie and tight pants. They were an upcoming VTuber with tracking devices. Me and Felina were friends with this guy, and not gonna lie, we had fun. We had a bunch of clips together, and it was fun. However, Plate decided that he wanted to modify his server a bit. Not gonna lie, I didn't mind that. I didn't mind that at all. He deserves just doing anything. And me and Felina were gonna be unmodded for a bit. And I'm like, okay, cool. Just let me know what's going on. And let me know what is happening so I know what to prepare for. Not even at least at night. Not even least at night. That we were being, like, ghosted. Ghosted by Plate. Let me remind you that Plate is married, so I basically respect them. But however, I was kind of like a little pissed off and a little salty that he kept like just ignoring my texts and basically just ignoring Felina's texts as well. It was bullshit. So I was deciding to be passive aggressive in his chat, in his general chat, because I was sick and tired of being like ignored. Like, what else am I supposed to do? Just continue to be ignored? Bruh. But it was mostly my fault. However, his fans were being disrespectful towards me and Felina. And not even like a few minutes later, and after I clocked out on my shift, we were basically betrayed by Plate. I kind of wasn't surprised there. I knew something was up, and I kind of knew that it was going to happen anyway. So I told him that I needed to get some air. I'm sorry for like just being an ass, because, well, being an ass is one thing. Being something else is basically another. So later on, my coordinator Carrie had her last day at Cirque as a cord because she was doing other things. But yeah, basically it was her last day. I was kind of sad about it because anyways, after the last day, I was fucking sick after I changed a shift with someone. Not gonna lie, I felt bad, but I felt ill to the point where I couldn't get up. That I couldn't get up. I was feeling like absolute garbage. Just absolute garbage. And not gonna lie, it's crazy. I'm just like, why is this happening to me? But yeah, it was nuts. I didn't know what else to do except just lie there in bed. But after that day, I kind of had to go back to work. Not gonna lie, here's a system may I have added. Here is a system that they have added in the Disney College program. So, when you are absent or when you are sick, they add a point. A point is basically a point of absence. They use this to track everyone's absences until 30 days and it goes away. Well, however, if you have been constantly like being absent, showing up late, or being sick, they give you a reprimand. Having a reprimand is basically like coaching or discipline, or basically just talking about what you need to do better. And honestly, it was crazy, because after I was sick, I was kind of panicking. And if you get like 4 reprimands, you basically get terminated automatically. There was no second chances in that. So after that Saturday, I had to continue working because I would have been written up, and I was still ill that day. So I kind of had to wear a mask, or just basically just suck it up. So later on, my family has been constantly texting me. They're always like, they always miss me, and I did like worry about that because yes, but they kept like comparing my like ceramics grade and being compared to my 21-year-old beanstalk brother. Like, I'm not as smart as him, but I'm smart. I try to be. It's kind of not fun when I'm compared to my sibling. Not gonna lie, it kind of hurts. So, almost at the end of February, my toilet got clogged in my apartment. And not gonna lie, I got a new roommate the first 2 weeks of February after my other roommate left. Not gonna lie, was massive garbage. She was still on the toilet while the toilet was clogged. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And I had to call multiple times for like, I forgot what it was called. Was it like the cast member community? I forgot what it was called. But I had to call maintenance multiple times and put a support ticket until they finally came to my door and solved the problem. So yippity-doo! And when I was working at a cart at the last day of February, a lady kind of snatched the receipt after paying me, which I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Have a nice fucking day. And y'all, I have been waiting for this moment. March. And that one, my friends, bargaining. Bargaining is one thing, but having to being told a lot of stuff is kind of like, holy shit. Play continued to give us silent treatment for me and Felina. Not gonna lie, I think the friendship is over there, and I just kind of like cut ties because I didn't know what else to do. So I'm just like, okay. If you want to act like that, I won't speak to you anymore. I still follow him, yet I'm kind of just waiting for the day that I just stop following him, because it's crazy that he was just still like have a grudge against me when I'm literally apologized a lot of times to him. Yeah, he probably doesn't care. He doesn't care. But yeah, I was already having a tired body and menstrual pain. Being a woman is difficult. Being a woman is difficult. I hate my life. But yeah, there were many a times that in Circus LA that the sodas have been down and not tested properly. However, I was gonna get myself a drink, right? I ended up being sprayed by Coca-Cola. And I was asked to clock in afterwards. Second-handed embarrassment. Not gonna lie. It was kind of embarrassment. I did not like how I had to deal with that shit. And then after that day, I was working with my other coordinator who was cool. We had to stay late due to a 10-minute delay on the show because it caused our stocking and cleanup to be very difficult because people were everywhere. And we didn't know what else to fucking do. So we did what we could, and we like clocked out at like 10 something, which is not as bad, but it was kind of like, holy shit. Not even 2 days later, there was a CO2 gas leak, and we couldn't make fountain drinks again. Same day, I was kind of nitpicked for everything by my coworkers, like the beer needed carbonation as well, the CO2, the wine, and I was basically told not to have my iPad when I was, like, in the break room. Like, bruh, what? I was just basically targeted for everything and getting blamed on. It's not gonna happen again. And I made it not happen again. I became firm. I became firm, like, I am not gonna be treated like this. I was sick and tired of this shit. The iPad wasn't the issue. People's attitudes were the issue. Not gonna lie, I was gonna literally go to a leader and get everyone, like, a reprimand. But not gonna lie, I did not do it because that would be petty of me. But yeah. Later on that March, someone tipped me while I was working a very, very early shift. I don't like mornings, okay? Mornings would kill me in a heartbeat. It's just not fun. Like, being, like, woken up, like, very early had me, like, my entire emotional state just crack. I get extremely tired. Not gonna lie, just very tired to the point where I'm just like, ah! Basically. Just screaming. So I was working at the E-Cord cart, which is on the west side of where Disney Springs is, and someone tipped me a $5 tip. And they were saying, have a good day, be happy. And I'm like, wait, we don't do tips. So we have this thing called that we don't do tips as cast members. Only the bartenders get tips. It's kind of a system that people have been literally fighting over, that we should get tips. However, that's not the case, and the coordinators and leaders have suggested not to get tips because it's just not how we do things, they said. Their own words. So after my break, I kind of like went to my leader, and he was happy that I was like being very honest, and just told me to put it in the cash register in the same cart that I was in and go back to work, basically. So that's what I did, and at the end of the day, I was fine. Until it wasn't. A few days later, there was the Sarah situation. There were 3 girls that kind of had beef with me. Sarah, Liz was okay, and Alexandria. They were alright, but they kind of constantly just had bad, like, blood towards me. Not Liz. Liz was an angel. The other 2 were just basically just stressed about everything and just gave me the cold shoulder and everything else. And I'm just like, bitch, what did I do to you? And Sarah was just mad at me during her stocking shift because I made a list for her, and I was just kind of like, bruh. Like, bruh. I'm doing my best here. I've only been, like, a cast member for 2 months. Not gonna lie, it was kind of like bullshit. And not gonna lie, my cords tried to keep me past my clock out time, and I was like, bitch, hell nah. Get me out of here. Yeah, it was kind of not fun. And alas, the last few days of March, I was finishing up my first meal, and then I was taking a few bites, and then I clocked in because it was my day. And as I clocked in and finished what I was doing, because let me remind you that I have an eating disorder, and I still do to this day. But with specific foods, I can't digest well. And how my freaking esophagus works is that every time it gets, like, packed, it hurts. Let me remind you that every time I swallow, I panic. Not panic out of stress, I panic because I thought I was gonna choke. So I have a fear of choking with an eating disorder. Fun, right? Very fun. Let me remind you that a coordinator that I have beef with saw me finishing up my meal before I went on, like, to work. She immediately put me on break because she thought I was violating a rule. Y'all, come on. I was still salty about it, but I didn't give a fuck at that point. Because since it was the end of March, and I didn't really care. And I was called over for another reprimand. Bruh, when does it end? My leader told me that she was gonna look into that, and I told her, not the coordinators, that I had an eating disorder, and they gave me a health file, so next time that I have the program, they can look into that, and they cannot cause beef. So, kind of happy that there was, like, a solution to this bullshit, but I was still kind of salty about what has happened. And alas, online drama. Not gonna lie, it was painful. Because these 2 people, including the rest of Shade's friends, Brian Wolfie has removed me because of the situation. And I was continuing to be harassed by Shade's viewers the entire program. And this started back in late December. Bullshit, right? I was constantly getting harassed. It finally stopped, like, today, but I was sick and tired of having to get harassed to the point where I just want to block everyone. But I didn't block everyone immediately because I just didn't want to deal with shit. I was too tired. I was too, like, why? Just why? But yeah, Ryan Wolfie made the excuse that I wasn't active on his servers and decided to, like, get rid of me and just basically plain on just disrespect me. Not gonna lie, I just didn't want to hear it anymore, and I said, you know what, do what you want, I don't care. Just letting you know that you're gonna, like, have, like, no other freaking, like, support after this. And I was right on this one, because, not gonna lie, it's crazy. And you all have been waiting for this for a while. April is my anger month. Not gonna lie, I was literally ticked off every single time possible, but I did not break. There were multiple times that I almost broke, but I did not want to show that side. So, Disney decided to change my time to extend me for another hour without telling me. As I was leaving to go to work, I was informed that I would be extended for another hour. And I'm like, and you guys didn't tell me? Like, y'all, you need to tell your cast members before they go to work, or just text them that you are being extended. Like, they forced me to extend. Bruh. And I was mostly deranged from the BS the leaders were trying to do beef with the cast members. Not gonna lie, it was crazy. Now everyone, trigger warning, because this is like... Hold on, I gotta turn off my music for this one. So, trigger warning for this one. There was an active shooting at the Florida State University. Not gonna lie, I was panicked by that. And a lot of people were informed. My brother was fine. He wasn't on campus. My brother told me, thank God. However, with my best friend Crystia, she was okay. She decided to skip class, yet her class was right next to where the student union was, where the active shooting happened. Not gonna lie, everyone was okay, but it still was a scare. I still don't know how many people have, like, been injured or got unalived that day. It was a very unfair thing to happen. Anyways, moving on. The security guard on duty tried to stop me from getting back to work because they thought I was just getting in, and I told him that I was still working. While also had to get back to work an extra hour and a half because of the shortage of staffs. Not gonna lie, there was a very big shortages of staff because people were getting terminated for no reason. People were just being like, holy shit, you don't work this day. And I was basically being told that I'm working one day each week. Which, not gonna lie, it put a lot of stress on me. And it did, because I was sick and tired of having to deal with crap. So, after that whole scene, and at the end of April, here's a good thing that has happened. I was just doom scrolling on streams on Twitch, and I saw a particular VTuber that I had followed. They were the name of NoxKingVT, and he was gonna have a big surgery and at least needed at least $150, and anything helps. So I was like, wait a minute, do they have PayPal? Does he have PayPal? I can help him out. So I decided to use my PayPal to help and support him for his full recovery. It showed up on his stream. He cried. He was so happy. I was happy for him. Later on, I was literally messaging him to see if he was okay, and he was. He was fully recovering. I hope he does. I hope he's gonna be okay. And yeah, I was just like, okay. Last month, but not least, I was kind of waiting for this. You thought it was going to be denial? Nah, both denial and acceptance. Y'all, you thought I was going to be like, huh? Really? Really? Y'all thought I was gonna be in denial? Nah, I'm getting the fuck out of there. So I was sent on break when I clocked in, twice this early May. I was kind of pissed off about it, so I was just like, you know what? Not today. So I kind of went just through it. And not even a few days later, after March, Ryan Wolfie decided to swat me with hate because I was showing empathy towards him and how he was feeling because of his quote-unquote status on Discord. Not gonna lie, I would have been there a few more times, but I was very busy with work. Like, it took a lot of energy out of me. I was very exhausted, and I just basically just wanted to get it done. However, it turns out he was fucking mad because another friend of mine, was a friend, named Dash, saw me on the debate group that I had called Chaotic Debate. It was me, Felina, Raydern, and Amaru, his wife, just playing shit, just talking about anything. Because it's a debate group. Who doesn't like a debate group? And Ray streamed that debate group on March the 30th of 2025. Not gonna lie, it was a long time ago, and he got mad at me for 2 months over this bullshit. So basically, I just gave up trying to say hi and show empathy towards others, and ended up getting hate swatted with everyone the next day. So I was just like, you know what? Blocked. I blocked everyone that I had to deal with because I was sick and tired of getting hate. I was sick and tired of getting harassed. I was sick and tired of the entire shade situation. It was bullshit. I did not like it. And even my boyfriend Andrew was even shocked that he and his entire freaking group was still fucking harassing me. Not gonna lie, I handled it like a pro. I was just sick and tired of everyone's bullshit. But anyways, later on, when I was about to be my departure day, Shade blocked me. And I decided to not give him the chance about it and explaining myself, so I blocked him too. Not gonna lie, I was about to go way worse, but I did not. It would have been very petty of me. So yeah, later on, there was actually a happy ending to this. There was actually a happy ending to this. The last few days of work came and went. However, when it almost hit, like, at least one day of my departure day, I decided to leave early. A day early. Because they would want me to, like, wake up at 6 a.m. just to pack more than I need to be. Not gonna lie, these past few months, I had to clean up after my roommates. Not gonna lie, I was just like, what? I get that they were, like, busy 24/7, but at least clean the dishes or something? Because their dishes were piled. My toilet had a dark rim around it. Because thanks to my roommate and whatever the fuck she does in the fucking toilet. Not gonna lie, I don't think the replacement roommate that she's gonna have is not gonna tolerate that shit. But yeah, the last few work days came and went, and when I got out of there, I was just exhausted and I passed out in my mom's car. I was just happy to go home at that point. And a few days later, I went back to Orlando for a trip. This time, I had my boyfriend with me. Me and him had fun. We went to Magic Kingdom, we went to Animal Kingdom, we went to Hollywood Studios, and we had fun. We lived happily ever after until he had to go back to the airport, and I cried. Ever so. I cried. Just like the first time that he actually saw me for Halloween Horror Nights. I did cry when he left. I was in tears. I was very much in tears when he left. We even went to the water park Typhoon Lagoon, and it was fun. So, I was happy that I was able to spend time with him. But yet, I was sad to see him go. And all for the other people on Discord, thank you so much for supporting me. I would like to shout out a lot of people, a lot of friendings. We got Felina, CaptainLyhr, we got VoltageScums, Sushiniplays, Ren Yakman, just Ren, Raydern, Amaru, my lovely Andrew, Deron, and so many more. And of course, Felina. I did say Felina in that group. Just, yes. But yeah, I love y'all. Thank you all so much for your support. And this includes for my viewers and my followers back on Twitch. Thank you so much. I love y'all, and I'll see you all next time. See you all later. Bye-bye.